Hello guys, and welcome to Coin's Most Valuable channel. Today we're going to take a nice, deep dive into a coin you probably have in your pocket change right now, the 2007 D.U.S. 5 cents, better known as the 2007 D. Jefferson nickel. So, let's get started. Now at first glance, this might seem like just another everyday coin, but it's actually a really fascinating little piece of American history and numismatics. That's the hobby of coin collecting, by the way. It's connected to shifts in U.S. mint design philosophy, important changes in how we depict our founding fathers, and even in how everyday objects are tied to our national identity. So let's dig in. The Jefferson Nickel Series started all the way back in 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel, that beautiful but hard-to-strike coin that showed a Native American on the front and a buffalo on the back. The Buffalo nickel was beloved, but it was considered a bit impractical for mass minting. So the mint held a design competition, and sculptor Felix Schlag won with his image of Thomas Jefferson on the front and Jefferson's home, Monticello, on the back. That original design lasted basically unchanged for decades, from 1938 all the way through the early 2000s. Sure, there were tiny little tweaks over the years, but overall, Jefferson's left-facing profile and that somewhat simplified view of Monticello became part of everyday American life. But in the early 2000s, things started to change. The U.S. Mint began a program called the Westward Journey Nickel Series to celebrate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, a pivotal moment in American history, and a moment Thomas Jefferson was intimately tied to, since he sent Lewis and Clark on their famous journey across the continent. So in 2004 and 2005, if you remember, the nickels looked a little different. New reverses were introduced, with designs like the peace medal, the keelboat, and the American bison. Even the obverse, the front, got an update, showing different portraits of Jefferson. But the Westward Journey series wasn't meant to last forever. By 2006, the Mint wanted to settle on a new, permanent design for the Jefferson nickel going forward. And that brings us to the 2007 D 5-cent piece. The 2007 nickel features an updated portrait of Thomas Jefferson that was created by a talented artist named Jamie Franke. For the first time ever on a U.S. coin, Jefferson isn't shown in profile, but facing almost directly at us, with just a very slight turn to his left. This change was subtle but powerful. Instead of being a distant, classical figure, Jefferson feels a little more human, a little more approachable, like someone you could have a real conversation with. Interestingly, Franke based the portrait on a painting of Jefferson done by Rembrandt Peale in 1800, right around the time Jefferson was running for president. The goal was to show a younger, more optimistic Jefferson, someone at the beginning of shaping the American experiment, rather than the elder statesman we often imagine. Now one really cool feature of the 2007 nickel is the word liberty, written in Jefferson's own handwriting. The Mint actually took a sample of Jefferson's script from a letter he wrote and recreated it on the coin. So when you look at that simple word, liberty, you're actually looking at Thomas Jefferson's personal penmanship from over 200 years ago. It's a subtle but meaningful connection between the past and the present. The date, 2007, appears just underneath the word liberty, along with the mint mark, D, for Denver. If you ever see one of these nickels and the mint mark is missing, well, that's either a very interesting error coin or it's from the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally doesn't use a mint mark unless it's a proof coin. Speaking of mints, let's talk a little bit about the production numbers. The Denver Mint struck about 490 million nickels in 2007. That's a lot, almost 500 million coins. Philadelphia struck a similar number. So from a purely numerical standpoint, the 2007 D nickel is extremely common. It's still out there in pocket change, cash registers, banks, everywhere. This isn't a rare coin by any stretch of the imagination. Because of the high mintage, if you find a 2007 D nickel today, it's usually only worth face value, 5 cents. If you're lucky enough to find one that's in absolutely pristine, uncirculated condition, no scratches, no nicks, no wear, and you send it off to a coin grading service like PCGS or NGC and it comes back graded MS 67 or better, then you might have a coin that's worth a few dollars, maybe even $10 to $20 to the right collector. But the vast majority of these coins, even in pretty nice condition, won't command big premiums. Still, finding a really high-grade coin straight from circulation is part of the fun for collectors. It's like a little treasure hunt. And a lot of collectors, especially those who specialize in modern coins, love trying to build complete sets where every coin is in the highest possible grade. Now, as for varieties and errors, the 2007 D nickel doesn't have any major known varieties. You won't find anything like a double die reverse or a missing Monticello. However, minor mint errors can happen in any year, things like die cracks, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, and so on. These are relatively rare, but they do pop up, and if you find one, it can definitely add some value to your find. One of the things that sets coins like the 2007 D nickel apart from earlier designs is how much sharper and more detailed the designs can be, thanks to modern minting technology. The U.S. Mint was using newer techniques in the 2000s, including digital sculpting tools, to create coins that captured finer details and had a more lifelike appearance. And that leads to an interesting point about coin collecting today. Some people criticize modern coins. They say, "Oh, they're boring. They're too common. Nothing special." But actually, coins like the 2007 D nickel are windows into how America sees itself in the 21st century. This Jefferson isn't a stoic, distant figure carved out of marble. He's someone who looks out at us, almost inviting conversation. The artistry is subtle but intentional. Another fun fact about Jefferson and Monticello, the building shown on the reverse. Monticello wasn't just his home. Jefferson designed it himself. It was a living laboratory for his ideas about architecture, agriculture, politics, and philosophy. Every brick, every window, every garden path was part of his vision of the ideal American life. And that's why it's so fitting that Monticello continues to appear on the back of our 5-cent coin. Monticello was on the back from 1938 until 2003, took a brief hiatus during the Westward Journey Series, and then came back with a slight redesign in 2006, just a little sharper and cleaner to match modern tastes. So to bring it all together, the 2007 D Jefferson nickel is, on the surface, just another common coin. But it represents a key transition. It's where American coinage took a step toward making our founding fathers feel more personal, more human. It blends classic elements, like Jefferson's legacy and Monticello, with fresh design touches, like the forward-facing portrait and the handwritten Liberty. It might not be rare. It might not be valuable. But it's a fascinating reminder that even the coins jingling in our pockets have stories to tell. And who knows? Maybe one day, a small error variety will be discovered, and suddenly some of these 2007 D nickels might become a lot more interesting to collectors. That's part of the magic of coins, their history you can hold in your hand, and sometimes they surprise you when you least expect it. So next time you're sorting through your change, keep an eye out for that 2007 D nickel. Look at Jefferson's face, check out that beautiful Monticello on the back, and think about all the history packed into just 5 little cents.